Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're diving deep into the world of the circular economy and zero-waste living, but with a twist this time. You've given us a ton of research that really gets into the nuts and bolts of how this stuff actually works in the real world.
Yeah, definitely. We're going way beyond just, catchy slogans and feel-good vibes. We're looking at the actual policies being made right now, the economic forces at play, how communities are getting involved and the role of technology. It's going to be quite a journey.
Okay, cool. I've got to say, I'm really interested in the policy side of all this. I feel like we hear all the time about the need for systemic change, but what does that actually look like on the ground? Like, what are governments doing to try to make this circular future a reality?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Let's break down this idea of extended producer responsibility, right? You mentioned it earlier, but this has the potential to be absolutely huge. Imagine a world where companies are on the hook for their products even after, you've bought them.
It's almost like they're responsible for the entire life of the product, not just getting it off the shelves. I'm thinking about all the e-waste we see piling up everywhere. If those companies knew they'd have to deal with recycling or disposal down the line, wouldn't that totally change how they design these things in the first place?
Exactly. It creates this incentive for durability, repairability, recyclability. Like, if a company knows they might have to deal with that broken smartphone later, they're going to be way more motivated to make sure it's easier and cheaper to deal with.
So it's not about punishing companies for making waste. It's about encouraging them to design it out from the start.
That's the idea, yeah. And that's where you see things like the EU's Circular Economy Action Plan. They're not just setting targets for recycling, but tackling packaging waste, promoting sustainable textiles, really trying to bake this circularity into how products are made from the ground up.
I was looking at South Korea's resource circulation policy too. They seem to be taking a pretty multifaceted approach as well. Waste charges to encourage people to reduce waste, extended producer responsibility schemes.
Oh yeah, and what's interesting is they're also promoting this thing called industrial symbiosis. So the waste from one company actually becomes the raw material for another. It's like they're creating this closed loop ecosystem where nothing really goes to waste.
It's almost like nature itself, where everything gets, reused and recycled.
Yeah.
So we've got government setting the stage with policies and regulations. But what about the economics of all this? Is this going to cost a fortune, or are there actual opportunities here?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. The circular economy is not just about saving the planet, it's also about unlocking a whole new wave of economic growth.
Okay, I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical at first. I thought this was all about nice-sounding initiatives, but they wouldn't actually be good for business. But the more I read, the more I realized there's a real business case for this circularity stuff.
There absolutely is. Take a company like DS Smith, for example. They've figured out how to turn old cardboard boxes into new ones in just 14 days.
Wow, 14 days. That's amazing. I'm picturing like mountains of cardboard boxes becoming brand new packaging in less than 2 weeks. That's got to have a massive impact on their costs.
For sure. Not only that, but they've partnered with retailers to actually collect those used boxes, creating this closed loop where they reduce waste A&D, save money on raw materials. It's win-win.
This reminds me of Patagonia. They've built their whole brand around sustainability. They even encourage people to repair their clothes instead of throwing them away. Repair guides, a repair service partnering with iFixit to make it easier to find parts.
And that's smart. It creates this deeper connection with the customer. People appreciate a company that stands behind its products and encourages responsible consumption.
It makes you wonder why more companies aren't doing this. Seems like a great way to build brand loyalty and stand out in the market.
Totally. And as consumers become more eco-conscious, we're going to see a lot more companies embracing this as a way to compete.
So we've got governments setting the stage with policies, businesses finding clever ways to thrive in a circular economy. But what about individuals and communities? Where do we fit into this?
That's the key piece, right? We can have the best policies, the most innovative businesses, but without people actually changing their behavior, the circular economy can't reach its full potential.
Yeah, and I imagine there are plenty of people who feel overwhelmed by the idea of zero waste. They think it's too hard, too time-consuming, or their actions won't make a difference.
And that's where these community initiatives are so important. Think about something like a repair cafe. It's not just about fixing stuff. It's about bringing people together, building community, sharing knowledge and skills.
It's about creating a culture where repair and reuse are valued, where people actually feel empowered to make a difference.
Exactly. And then you have community composting programs, workshops, even just simple things like choosing reusable items over single-use plastics. All these small actions add up.
You know, I read about this town in Italy that launched a zero waste program. They've managed to hit an 80% recycling rate. It's amazing what can happen when a whole community gets behind an idea.
Really inspiring. And it shows that the shift to a circular economy isn't just about top-down policies. It's about these grassroots movements, communities taking ownership of the issue.
And I think that's a perfect segue to our next topic, technology and innovation, because that's where we see some really exciting solutions popping up, things that make it easier for individuals and communities to embrace circularity.
You're right. Let's dive into that fascinating world in part 2 of our deep dive into the circular economy.
Okay, so welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the thick of this circular economy thing, and last time we were about to get into the role of technology, all this innovation.
Yeah, and it's a big one because technology can either speed things up or actually hold us back when it comes to a circular future. It all depends on how we use it.
It's a double-edged sword kind of thing. On one hand, you've got, these innovations making recycling more efficient, helping track materials. But on the other hand, it can lead to more consumption, more waste.
Exactly. We need to be smart about the downsides, right? While also harnessing the power of technology to create a more sustainable system. Like, for instance, artificial intelligence and how it's being used in waste sorting.
Oh, yeah. I've seen videos of those AI robots, like flying through piles of recycling, picking things out with incredible accuracy. It's amazing.
It really is. Companies like AMP Robotics are using AI to actually identify and separate different types of materials, even stuff that's super hard for humans to tell apart. And this doesn't just boost recycling rates, it also cuts down on contamination, so you get higher quality recycled materials.
So it's not just about sorting faster, it's about sorting smarter. Makes the whole recycling process more efficient, more cost-effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have blockchain technology that could totally revolutionize how we track materials across their entire life cycle. Imagine being able to trace, like, a plastic bottle from its creation to recycling to becoming something new.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
Consumers could make more informed decisions. Companies would be held accountable for their impact. Total transparency.
Right. Blockchain could even help fight counterfeiting, ensure ethical sourcing, more sustainability across the board.
It's like a digital fingerprint that sticks with the product through its entire journey.
Okay, that's powerful.
But let's move beyond just managing waste. What about innovations that are changing how products are made in the first place?
This is where things get really exciting. We're seeing this boom in bio-based materials, packaging made from mushrooms, seaweed, stuff that's completely biodegradable, compostable.
Ecovative design.
Yeah.
They grow packaging from mycelium, which is like the root structure of mushrooms. I read about that. It's like straight out of science fiction.
Right. And not only is it sustainable, it's also really versatile. You can mold it into all sorts of shapes and textures, a real alternative to plastics.
Makes you wonder why we're still using so much plastic when there are these amazing alternatives already out there.
Well, there are definitely challenges, cost, scaling things up, getting consumers on board. But with more research, more investment, these bio-based materials could really disrupt the packaging industry.
And it's not just materials. We're also seeing innovation in the manufacturing processes, like 3D printing, reducing waste, making on-demand production possible.
Huge potential there. 3D printing lets you make products using way less material, and it opens up the possibility of producing things locally, so less transportation, less emissions.
It's like you print exactly what you need when you need it. No need for mass production, tons of extra inventory.
Yeah, spot on. And as 3D printing gets better, we're seeing more recycled materials, bio-based inks, making it even more sustainable.
It feels like we're on the verge of this manufacturing revolution. Products designed for circularity from day one, waste minimized at every stage. But even with all this incredible technology, we can't forget about the human element, right?
You got it. Technology is powerful, but it only works if people use it right. We need a culture of sustainability, where people are empowered to make good choices and communities work together to create a more circular future.
Shifting from a throwaway culture to one that values repair, reuse, being responsible with what we consume. And that brings us to the role of communities in this whole transition.
Let's jump into that fascinating world of community engagement and behavior change in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we've talked about policies, the economics, technology, but now it's time to get into where the real action is. Communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get lost in the big picture stuff, but the circular economy isn't just some idea, right? It's about real people making changes in their everyday lives.
It's neighbors helping each other fix stuff instead of throwing it out. Towns coming together to compost, supporting local businesses that are, doing things the right way. Collective action.
And it's about changing how we think. We've been so used to this throwaway culture for so long that it can feel kind of overwhelming to switch gears. But the cool thing about community is that it can inspire, educate, support.
Like those repair cafes we talked about, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a practical way to fix things, it's also a social event. You learn new skills, meet people who care about the same stuff.
That community aspect is huge. It makes sustainable living feel less like you're giving things up and more like you're part of something bigger. It's not just you trying to reduce waste, it's a whole group of people working together.
And that shared goal, it's contagious. You see your neighbors composting, repairing their clothes, using reusable stuff. It makes those behaviors seem normal, more doable, like a ripple effect.
For sure. And it goes beyond individual actions, too. Communities can really influence things on a bigger scale by supporting businesses that are doing things the circular way.
Right. If you choose to buy from that local shop that uses recycled materials or offers a repair service, that sends a message. It shows there's a real demand for sustainability.
And those choices can have a ripple effect, too, encouraging other businesses to jump on board, using our collective buying power to actually shape the economy.
I was reading about this community in Scotland that did a whole zero waste initiative. They cut down their landfill waste so much by working together, composting, recycling, reducing what they used.
Yeah, groups like Zero Waste Scotland are so important. They give communities the resources and support they need to actually make those changes happen. Workshops, educational materials, they even connect businesses with recycling and composting services.
It's like they're providing a roadmap for communities to actually shift to this more circular way of life.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is it's not just about reducing waste. There are all these other benefits too.
Absolutely. It builds community pride, creates local jobs, can even boost the local economy. Everybody wins.
So we've talked about the role of government, the economic side, the tech, and now communities. It's a complex system, but what's clear to me is the circular economy isn't some far-off dream. It's happening right now, all around us.
It really is. And it's gaining momentum every day, from people making better choices to companies innovating to communities working together. We're seeing the foundation for a more sustainable future being built.
And it's a future we can all be a part of. Whether it's starting that compost bin, supporting a local repair cafe, or just choosing to reuse things. Every single action, no matter how small, it all adds up.
Yeah, that's the takeaway, right? We all have a role to play. By working together, we can actually create a world where waste is minimized, resources are valued, and communities are thriving.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the circular economy. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired, ready to take action, and join this movement towards a better future.